Lions versus Cowboys on Thursday Night Football. This game was all about Jahmyr Gibbs. He scored 3 touchdowns and officially tied Barry Sanders' record for most touchdowns scored before turning 24. And as for the game itself, it was competitive until Detroit took over, winning in a final score of 44-30. Browns versus Titans.
Cleveland, how did you lose to the Titans? You were the better overall team heading into this game, and you lost to a team where they were 1-11 heading into this game. How? And if you're wondering how, let's back up. So Tennessee had a 31-17 lead. Shedeur Sanders scrambled for a rushing touchdown to make it an 8-point game. Then Shedeur Sanders threw a pass to Fanning to make it a 2-point game. And then they tried to go for a 2-point conversion where Crenshaw Junkins tried to throw a pass to Shedeur Sanders and it was broken up by 2 Titans defenders, making it incomplete, and that ultimately cost them the game.
Perfect timing. Shedeur Sanders had a phenomenal game that he should have won. 364 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns, 1 rushing touchdown, and 1 pick. But it wasn't enough because Cam Ward had a really respectable game. 117 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, and only 1 pick. And the big star of the show for the Titans was Tony Pollard. 25 carries for 161 yards and 2 touchdowns. My God. Tennessee, congrats on the big win. And as for the Cleveland Browns, they're the Cleveland Browns. Falcons versus Seahawks. The Battle of the Bird teams went in favor for Seattle as they won in a dominant 37-9 win. Sam Darnold had a really good game. Jackson Smith-Njigba had a really good game. And Rashid Shaheed had a kick return touchdown for 65 yards. Kirk Cousins had another horrible game. 162 passing yards and 2 interceptions. Moral of the story is, Seattle is legit and the Atlanta Falcons still suck. So on to the next game. Jaguars versus Colts. The Jaguars single-handedly defeated the Colts in Jacksonville in a 36-19 win. And the biggest star of the show was Trevor Lawrence and Travis Etienne, who combined for 4 touchdowns. And unfortunately for the Colts, Daniel Jones tore his ACL on a no-contact injury. And Riley Leonard came in. He ran for a touchdown, but he threw an interception, as well as getting sacked for a safety. And now he's hurt. And now the Colts are going to rely on Phillip Rivers. Man, I can't believe that they actually picked him up. He's 44! Indy still hasn't defeated Jacksonville in Jacksonville since 2014. So, yeah. On to the next game. Vikings versus Commanders. The Vikings have shut out the Commanders in a 31-0 home win. And the biggest star of this game was, surprisingly, 163 passing yards and 3 touchdowns. And as for the Commanders, things were really going bad for them all game long. And largely thanks to injuries to Jane Daniels and Zach Ertz. And now the Commanders are back to the dark times. Bills versus Bengals. This was a really competitive game between the Bengals and the Bills. Cincinnati did have Buffalo on the ropes, and then Joe Burrow threw 2 interceptions, and one of which was a pick 6. And then Buffalo had all the momentum to put Cincinnati out of their misery. Josh Allen once again had a phenomenal game. 251 passing yards and 3 touchdowns, as well as a rushing touchdown that was over 40 yards. And as for Joe Burrow, he had really good numbers until he threw 2 interceptions. 284 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. And T. Higgins also had a really good game. 6 receptions for 92 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Josh Allen now has his first win against Joe Burrow in his career. And as a Bengals fan, I really want to be mad about this loss, but I just can't hate on Josh Allen. I like Josh Allen. So, good game to Buffalo, and I'll be rooting for them in the playoffs. Buccaneers versus Saints. How the hell did we lose to the Saints? It's because Tyler Shuck played like Josh Allen against us by scoring 2 rushing touchdowns. I mean, I'm impressed, but what the hell? And the Saints also benefited from Emeka Buka dropping a wide open touchdown pass. And we also were down by 4. We had 5 minutes left to get the ball back, but we didn't. And New Orleans drained out the rest of the clock to win 24-20. If we lose the division title to the Panthers, I don't know what I'm going to do next. I mean, congrats to the Saints, but as a Buccaneers fan, what were we doing?
Brady, if you're listening to this, please come back. I know you own a pirate team, but come back to this pirate team, please!
Ravens versus Steelers. I gotta say this. The Ravens 100% got screwed over by the refs. Because Lamar Jackson threw a touchdown pass to Isaiah Likely, and it should have counted, because Isaiah Likely got 2 feet in before the ball got out of his hands. That should have been a touchdown, but they called it an incomplete pass instead. But as for the game itself, it was kind of uneventful, but entertaining at the same time, if that makes sense. But I just can't believe that the Steelers are probably going to win this division because Mike Tomlin has a lucky rabbit's foot somewhere in his office. Because there's no way that this team can be so mediocre and find a way to finish 9-8 or 10-7 every single year. Jets versus Dolphins. The Dolphins kicked the ever-living snot out of a horrible Jets team where their starting quarterback, Tyrod Taylor, got hurt. Then Brady Cook came in and he threw 2 interceptions.
Jalen Wright had a really good game, 24 carries for 107 yards and a touchdown. And speaking of Jalen Waddle had 5 receptions for 50 yards and a touchdown. The New York Jets, ladies and gentlemen, they will always find a way to make their fans miserable every single year.
Raiders versus Broncos. The Broncos barely defeated a horrible team, shocker. And as for the Raiders, Geno Smith got hurt in this game. He really shouldn't even be the starter at this point. That much is obvious. And then Kenny Pickett came in, whose hands are so tiny that it makes a baseball look like a volleyball in his hands.
But I will give Vegas credit for nailing a 46-yard field goal as the clock hit 0 to cut this deficit to 7 instead of 10.
Cardinals versus Rams. The Rams defeated the Cardinals in the desert in a 45-17 road win.
And the Rams' high-powered offense had a really good game against the Cardinals. Matthew Stafford had 281 passing yards and 3 touchdowns. Blake Corum had 12 carries for 128 yards and 2 touchdowns. And Puka Nacua had 7 receptions for 167 yards and 2 touchdowns. And as for Arizona, Michael Wilson had a really good game. 11 receptions for 142 yards and 2 touchdowns. So, yeah. On to the next game.
Packers versus Bears. The Packers once again showed how they still own the Bears. And that is shown in this 28-21 win at Lambeau.
Jordan Love had 234 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, and only 1 pick. Josh Jacobs had 20 carries for 86 yards and a touchdown. And Christian Watson had 4 receptions for 89 yards and 2 touchdowns.
And the Bears' winning streak unfortunately comes to an end by the Green Bay Cheeseheads. And just like what Aaron Rodgers said to the Bears, I still own you. Chiefs versus Texans on Sunday Night Football. The Texans defeated the Chiefs in a 20-10 win at Arrowhead. And the Chiefs were held to 0 points in the first half. And that is crazy considering that the Chiefs are in the Mahomes era. And you know, he's supposed to be better than Tom Brady, apparently. And this shows that the Texans' defense is legit. And how the Chiefs are not really that good anymore, to say the least.
Patrick Mahomes had a really horrible game that I'm not really supposed to see out of him. 160 yards and 3 interceptions. Some of those interceptions wasn't really his fault because of Travis Kelce. But honestly, I feel bad for Mahomes. He's putting in all of his effort to try to win games for the Chiefs, and he got let down by his teammates.
But anyways, the Texans should be legit playoff contenders this year, and the Chiefs, they're not going to make the playoffs.
And finally, Chargers versus Eagles on Monday Night Football. This game was actually really entertaining. And the most memorable moment of this game was when Jalen Hurts threw an interception to a Chargers defender. Then he fumbles the ball. Jalen Hurts recovers the fumble. He fumbles, and then it was recovered by the Chargers. It was hilarious.
Anyways, this was a back and forth contest between Philly and LA, and eventually went into overtime. And in overtime, the Chargers had possession of the ball first, and then they scored a field goal. And then the Eagles got deep into LA territory, and then Jalen Hurts threw a game-losing interception by Jefferson to give the Chargers a 22-19 win in overtime.
What an incredible interception by Tony Jefferson, who had a one-handed interception to give the Chargers the win. And they all live happily ever after at the end.